You ever had a moment when the weight of life was so heavy, you didn't even have the strength to pray a full sentence? All you could whisper was, Lord, help. Not a fancy prayer, not a churchy chant, just help. And you didn't even know what you needed help with, because everything felt like it was falling apart at the same time. You smiled in public, but you were breaking in private. You were showing up for others, but you couldn't show up for yourself. And right when you thought the storm would never end, right when you almost gave up on God, something shifted. Not everything got better overnight, but you felt something, a presence, a whisper, a strength not your own. And deep in your soul, you knew God was carrying you. See, I came to tell somebody today, you are not crazy for feeling tired. You are not weak because you've been crying. You are human. You are in process. And guess what? God isn't waiting for you to have it all together. He's saying, let me be your help today, not tomorrow, not when you fix your attitude, not when you stop making mistakes. Right now, in the middle of the mess, in the thick of the storm, in the chaos of not knowing how it's all going to work out, God will carry you. You don't need to fake strong when God has already offered to be your strength. You don't need to pretend fearless when the God of angel armies said, I will fight for you. He didn't say he might. He didn't say if you behave. He said, I will. And when God says, I will, every demon in hell has to back down. Every weapon formed has to malfunction. Every storm has to submit to the one who walks on water. Can I tell you something? Storms are not evidence that God left you. They're proof that he's about to reveal himself. God doesn't always calm the storm. Sometimes he calms you while the storm rages on, just to show the storm who really has the final say. You think you're barely hanging on, but baby, God is holding you tighter than you think. You think you're being delayed, but heaven is orchestrating something you couldn't build with your own hands. Don't curse this season. Don't despise the silence. God does his best work in the dark. See, God doesn't waste storms. He uses them. He uses them to strip away the people who were only connected to your sunshine. He uses them to detox your faith from your own strength. He uses them to remind you that you were never meant to do this on your own. You were never created to carry the weight of the world. That's his job. Your job, surrender. So today, when the anxiety creeps in, when the fear whispers your name, when the doubt tries to convince you that it's over, I dare you to pause and say with everything in your soul, Lord, be my help today. Not just for the big decisions, not just in the emergency room. I mean in traffic, in heartbreak, in confusion, in parenting, in grief, in healing, in waiting, in waking up when you don't want to face another day. Say it like a warrior. Say it like a child. Say it with faith. Say it with tears streaming down your face. Just say it. Because when you do, heaven leans in, angels stand guard, peace floods places that panic once ruled, and you realize you were never alone. You were never forgotten. You were never too far gone. God has always been there, and he's carrying you now. You ever been in a place so deep, so raw, so heavy that the only thing your soul could muster was, Lord, help? No eloquent words, no long-winded scriptures, just a broken whisper from a weary place. That's not weakness. That's warfare. That's what heaven responds to. Because God isn't impressed by polished prayers. He's moved by honest ones. And some of the most powerful shifts in your life will happen not when you know all the right things to say, but when your heart is too shattered to say anything at all except his name. See, we've been taught to dress up our prayers, to package our pain like God can't handle the real, unfiltered version of who we are. But there's something holy about the moment when your soul collapses in his presence and all you can do is cry, help. Not because you're faithless, but because your faith is under fire. And even in that fire, God says, that's enough. That simple cry unlocks supernatural assistance. Angels move, peace flows. Strength returns. You thought it was just a whisper, but in the spirit, it was a war cry, a declaration that says, God, I can't do this without you. not one more step. And the beautiful thing about God, he doesn't wait for you to pull it together. He shows up in that raw, unfinished, in between space and says, I've got you right there in your car, on your bathroom floor. In that silent midnight moment when nobody else sees you, he hears the cry you couldn't even say out loud. You just breathed it. And that breath reached the throne of grace. So don't let the enemy trick you into thinking your brokenness disqualifies you from God's help. Sometimes the shortest prayers reach the deepest parts of heaven. Sometimes all it takes is, Lord, be my help today. You keep thinking God's going to show up when you've cleaned everything up, when you've fixed your attitude, when you finally stopped crying over what you said you were done with. But what if I told you he shows up before the breakthrough? He walks right into the middle of your mess, before the apology, before the healing, before you even know how to explain what's going on inside of you. He doesn't need the perfect conditions. He just needs an open door. And sometimes that door is cracked open by nothing more than your desperation. God is not allergic to your chaos. He's not offended by your confusion. You might feel like everything is spiraling, but he's not panicking. He's not pacing around heaven trying to figure out what to do with you. He already stepped into your story knowing the mess. He signed up for the ugly parts, the hidden chapters, the questions you're too afraid to ask out loud. And he said, I'll help her there, right there in the heartbreak, right there in the addiction, right there in the anxiety that won't let you sleep. See, the enemy wants you to believe that you've got to be holy to be held, that you've got to get it right before you get access. But God doesn't need your perfection. He needs your permission. If you let him into the chaos, he will bring peace. If you let him into the pain, he will bring purpose. If you let him into the storm, he'll show you that even the wind and waves still know his name. Some of all are judging yourselves for being human. You're waking up exhausted, breaking down in the car, snapping at people you love, and then piling shame on top of already being overwhelmed. But hear me, you are not weak, you are human. And the enemy loves to whisper lies in your weariness. He'll say, if you were really strong, you wouldn't be struggling like this. He'll say, if you had real faith, you wouldn't be crying in secret. But can I tell you something real? God doesn't shame you for being tired. He invites you to bring that tiredness to him. We've created this false version of strength that says, don't cry, don't break, don't feel too much, don't let them see you sweat. But real strength is not in how well you hide the hurt. It's in who you run to when it hurts. And when you choose to run to God, messy, broken, stretched thin, and out of breath, that's when heaven says, now we can move. Because God never called you to be your own savior. He never asked you to carry burdens alone. That pressure you're under, that's not your assignment. That's why you're tired. You've been trying to do spiritual work with human strength, and God is saying, let me take it from here. So stop beating yourself up for feeling what you feel. Stop thinking you have to be bulletproof to be blessed. God doesn't anoint the mask you wear. He anoints the real you, the version of you that's limping but still walking, the version of you that's doubting but still believing, the version of you that's tired but still showing up. That's the you he's helping. That's the you he's carrying. You're not failing. You're not falling apart. You're being refined. And grace is holding you together in ways you can't even see. You've been trying to hold it all together, haven't you? Smiling through the pain, pushing through the pressure, pretending you're okay when you're hanging on by a thread. And can I just say it? You are exhausted, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually. You've reached the end of your strength, and you don't even want to admit it out loud. But here's the truth you need to hear. You don't have to be strong when God already promised to be your strength. You weren't created to carry every burden, fix every problem, be everything to everybody. That's not strength. That's survival. And survival is not your calling. You were called to thrive, to rest, to trust. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is say, God, I can't do it today. That's not defeat. That's surrender. And surrender is what activates heaven. That's when God says, now that you've let go, I can step in. You've been running on fumes, trying to pour from an empty cup, trying to be everything for everyone while neglecting the one person God told you to love you. But when you finally say, Lord, be my help, something shifts. Strength shows up in the quiet. Peace settles in your bones. God begins to carry what you were never meant to hold. And listen, when God carries it, it doesn't crush you. When God holds it, you don't have to break under it. So take off the cape, lay down the pressure, stop performing strength and start living in grace. Because God is not asking you to be superhuman. He's asking you to be surrendered. That's where the real power is. Not in pretending you're unshakable, but in leaning on the one who truly is. Some of you have mistaken the storm for abandonment. You're out here thinking that because the waves are crashing, God must have walked away. You're looking at your situation, at the silence, the struggle, the closed doors, and wondering, did God forget about me? But let me tell you something that will shake every lie the enemy tried to plant in your mind. The storm is not proof God left you. It's the space where he's about to reveal himself like never before. See, we love mountaintop moments. We love when the blessings are flowing, when the answers come quick, when the doors open wide. But don't you know some of the most powerful revelations of who God really is happen in the storm? When you can't see the way, when you've prayed and cried and nothing seems to shift, that's when God whispers, I'm still here. Not because everything's calm, not because everything makes sense, but because he never needed the storm to be over in order to be present. You thought the storm was punishment. Baby, it's preparation. It's purification. It's positioning. God is not using the storm to break you. He's using it to build something in you. That comfort never could. Because comfort doesn't develop character. Peace doesn't stretch your faith. But storms will teach you how to listen. Storms will show you who you really trust. Storms will strip away the things you thought you needed so that all you're left with is him. And here's the thing, God never promised a storm-free life. But he did promise his presence in the middle of it. He promised that when the wind blows and the rain falls, you won't be alone. So instead of asking, where is God in this? Ask yourself, what is he revealing to me through this? Because sometimes the greatest evidence that he's with you is not the absence of trouble. It's the peace that doesn't make sense while the trouble's still there. That's how you know it's him. You keep asking God, why this storm? Why now? Why me? But what if I told you that the storm wasn't sent to destroy you? It was sent to develop you. God doesn't waste pain. He doesn't just allow the winds to blow for nothing. He uses the storm to shake loose everything that was never meant to go with you into your next season. That storm isn't just weather, it's warfare, and it's working for you, not against you. See, when you're in the middle of it, it feels like it's all falling apart. People walk away, opportunities dry up. You start questioning who you are and whether you've missed it altogether. But let me speak this over your life. What's being removed is not rejection. It's refinement. God is peeling off the layers that can't handle the weight of your calling. He's detoxing your life from attachments that were good for your comfort, but dangerous for your growth. That heartbreak, that betrayal, that delay. Baby, that was a surgical separation. Heaven made a decision on your behalf to pull the plug on anything that could hinder your purpose. Because God knows what you don't. He knows what's ahead. He knows what's coming. And if he has to allow a storm to wake up the warrior in you, he'll do it. He'll allow the shaking, not because he's punishing you, but because he's positioning you. That storm taught you how to pray for real. That storm taught you how to discern spirits. That storm made you let go of pride and call on God like you've never called on him before. It didn't just change your situation, it changed you. So don't come out of the storm bitter, come out better, come out wiser, come out lighter, come out clearer. Because God didn't bring you through that just so you could survive. He brought you through so you could testify. So that when the next storm rises, you can look back and say, if he did it before, he'll do it again. Let the storm build you. Let it shape you. Let it reveal the power that was always inside you, waiting for a storm to bring it to the surface. We live in a world that glorifies control. Hustle harder, grind longer, fix it yourself, be your own hero. But can I tell you something the world won't? Control is not the same as strength. Control is fear wearing a power suit. And God never asked you to control everything. He asked you to trust him with it. There is nothing strong about trying to carry what's crushing you. Real strength doesn't come from striving. It comes from surrender. And surrender, that's not weakness. That's warfare. The enemy trembles when a woman of God lifts her hands and says, I don't have the answers. I don't know the outcome, but I trust the one who does. That is power. That is posture. That is where heaven begins to move. Because when you surrender, you're not giving up. You're giving it over. You're handing it to the only one who knows how to work it out for your good, even when it doesn't feel good. You've been exhausted trying to be the planner, the protector, the provider, the peacekeeper all at once. But can I release you from that today? You were never meant to be your own help. You were never meant to be the glue that holds it all together. That's why you're frustrated. That's why you're breaking down behind closed doors, because you've confused faith with control. But faith isn't controlling the outcome. Faith is saying, God, even if it doesn't look like what I prayed for, I believe you're still working. When you finally surrender, it's like something lifts. The pressure, the panic, the pretending, God replaces it all with peace, not because your situation changed, but because your spirit did. You stepped back and said, God, take the lead. And when he leads, he makes rivers in deserts. He parts red seas. He opens doors no man can shut. But it starts when you lay it down. Lay down your timeline. Lay down your pride, lay down your plans, not because you failed, but because you finally trust that his strength really is made perfect in your weakness. There's a kind of silence that can shake your faith if you're not anchored. That deafening quiet where you've prayed every prayer, cried every tear you've got, and heaven still feels mute. You wake up and ask, God, where are you? Do you even hear me anymore? And the enemy will try to convince you that silence means absence. But let me tell you something straight from the throne of grace. God's silence is not his abandonment. He may be quiet, but he's never still. See, we confuse noise with activity. We think if we're not hearing, seeing, or feeling something, nothing's happening. But God doesn't always shout when he moves. Sometimes he moves in the dark. Sometimes he works behind the curtain, behind the scenes, behind the heartbreak. Because if he let you see it too soon, you try to control it. You try to fix it. You try to touch what only his hand can handle. So instead of revealing, he conceals, not to punish you, but to protect what he's doing in you. God does some of his best work in the silence. Ask the seed. Buried in darkness, covered in dirt, no applause, no spotlight, and yet something's breaking open beneath the surface. Roots are growing. Foundations are being established. The future is being formed in the hidden place. So don't confuse the quiet with inactivity. You might feel stuck, but God is setting you up. You might feel alone, but heaven is gathering everything you'll need for what's coming next. This is your womb season, not your tomb season. Just because it's dark doesn't mean it's over. It means something is being birthed. So instead of panicking in the silence, I dare you to trust in it. Trust that